London, April 1815. The ballroom at Hertford House blazed with 1,000 candles, their light catching on silk gowns and jewelled throats. It was the grandest ball of the season, the event every ambitious mama had circled on her calendar since January. Catherine Ashford stood in a shadowed alcove near the terrace doors, a glass of lukewarm lemonade clutched in her gloved hands, and watched her sister shine. Rosalind was dancing again, her fourth partner of the evening. Her golden curls caught the candlelight as she turned, her laugh carrying across the ballroom like music. She was 19 and beautiful, with the kind of beauty that made men forget their own names. Catherine was 27 and invisible. This was her 8th season in London. The first 3 she had harboured hope. By the 5th she had learned resignation. Now she simply attended because her mother insisted. Someone had to ensure Rosalind was never without proper company. "There she is!" Lady Ashford's voice drifted from nearby, speaking to Lady Somerset. Catherine had not realised her mother stood so close. "My eldest, Catherine." "Ah, yes." Lady Somerset's tone carried that particular inflection reserved for discussing disappointments. "Still unmarried, I see." "Catherine serves a purpose," her mother replied, and Catherine's fingers tightened on her glass. "She ensures Rosalind is never alone, never unattended. We cannot expect more from her now, not at her age." Catherine closed her eyes. She had heard variations of this conversation before, but familiarity did not dull the blade. She took a careful breath, opened her eyes, and forced herself to look at the dancing couples once more. This was her role. She had accepted it. The music swelled. Rosalind turned in her partner's arms, radiant with youth and possibility. Catherine took a sip of lemonade and tasted nothing. Then the ballroom shifted. She felt it before she understood it, a change in the air, a collective intake of breath. Conversations faltered. Heads turned toward the entrance. Catherine looked up and saw him. Sebastian Thorne, Duke of Pembroke, stood at the top of the stairs leading down into the ballroom. He was tall, dark-haired, perhaps 30 years old. Catherine had seen him before, of course. Everyone had. He attended perhaps one event in 5, danced dutifully with the hostess, and left early. Mamas had been throwing their daughters at him for years, with no success. He descended the stairs. Lady Hertford rushed forward, flushed with triumph at his attendance. He bowed over her hand, said something that made her laugh, and dutifully led her on to the floor for a quadrille. Catherine watched with detached interest. She had long since stopped imagining herself in such scenes. The Duke danced with mechanical precision, his expression polite but distant. When the dance ended, he returned Lady Hertford to her husband, bowed again, and turned toward the refreshment table. His eyes swept the ballroom. Catherine looked away, focusing on her lemonade. She would finish this glass, remain another hour, and then plead a headache. Tomorrow she would walk in Hyde Park alone, the one freedom her family permitted. It was enough. It had to be enough. Footsteps approached. Catherine glanced up, expecting a servant offering to refill her glass. The Duke of Pembroke stood before her. Catherine's breath caught. Surely he was looking past her, at someone more important standing behind her. But when she glanced back, there was only the wall. "Miss Ashford," he said. His voice was deeper than she had expected. "May I have the honour of this dance?" Catherine stared at him. Her mind had gone entirely blank. Around them, conversations died. She felt eyes turning, heard the whispers beginning. She could not seem to form words. "Your Grace, I believe you have mistaken me for my sister. Miss Rosalind Ashford is—" "I have not mistaken you," he interrupted gently. He extended his hand. "Miss Catherine Ashford. May I?" She looked at his hand, at his face. He was not smiling, but his eyes were steady, patient, genuine. Something in her chest cracked open. "Yes," she whispered. Yes, thank you. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm even through their gloves, and he led her on to the floor. The whispers grew louder. Catherine saw her mother's face, white with shock and fury. Saw Rosalind stop dancing, her expression confused. But then the music began, and the Duke's hand settled at her waist, and Catherine forgot to breathe. They moved into the waltz. He danced far better than his performance with Lady Hertford had suggested, smooth, confident, leading her effortlessly through the turns. Catherine had always been a competent dancer, but she had not waltzed in 3 years. No one ever asked her to waltz. "You dance beautifully," the Duke said after a moment. Catherine looked up at him, startled. "Thank you, Your Grace." "Have you enjoyed the season thus far?" It was a standard question, meaningless social currency. She should respond with an equally meaningless pleasantry. Instead, she heard herself say, "I find most of it rather tedious, if I am honest." His lips twitched. "Do you?" Too late, Catherine realized her mistake. "Forgive me, I did not mean, I find it tedious as well," he said quietly. His eyes held hers. The same conversations, repeated endlessly. The same performances, everyone pretending to be someone they are not. Catherine forgot to maintain proper distance. She forgot they were being watched. "Yes," she breathed, "exactly that." They turned together, silent now, and Catherine felt something impossible unfurling in her chest. He was not looking past her. He was not looking at the beautiful girl in the background. He was looking at her, Catherine, and seeing her. The music swelled and faded. The waltz ended. The Duke stepped back, bowed formally, and lifted her hand to his lips. Even through her glove she felt the warmth of his mouth against her knuckles. "Thank you, Miss Ashford," he said softly. "This has been the only honest moment of my evening." Then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd before Catherine could respond. She stood alone on the edge of the dance floor, her heart hammering against her ribs, while around her the whispers rose like a tide. The carriage ride home was silent until they turned onto their street. Then Lady Ashford exploded. "What were you thinking?" Her mother's voice shook with fury. "How dare you embarrass your sister that way?" Catherine stared at her hands. "I did nothing, Mamma. He asked me to dance. I could not refuse without causing insult." "You should have directed him to Rosalind." Her mother's face was mottled red in the dim carriage light. "The Duke of Pembroke, do you understand what you have done? You have made us look ridiculous." Across from Catherine, Rosalind wept quietly into her handkerchief. Their father sat in the corner, silent as always. "I am sorry," Catherine whispered, because it was expected, because she had been apologizing for her existence for years. But later, alone in her room, she pressed her fingers to her lips and remembered the way the Duke had looked at her. Not through her, at her. For the first time in 8 years, Catherine Ashford wondered if perhaps she was not quite as invisible as she had believed. 3 mornings later, Catherine walked alone in Hyde Park. It was barely past dawn, the air still cool and clean. This was her single freedom. Her mother considered early morning walks too unfashionable to bother supervising, and Catherine treasured these stolen hours of solitude. She was thinking about nothing in particular, watching the light change on the Serpentine, when she heard footsteps behind her. "Miss Ashford, what excellent fortune!" Catherine spun around. The Duke of Pembroke stood 3 paces behind her, dressed for riding, though his horse was nowhere in sight. Her heart lurched into her throat. "Your Grace." She curtsied, mind racing. "I did not expect. This is unusual." "Highly unusual," he agreed, moving closer. "I happened to be riding nearby and saw you. May I walk with you?" It was not coincidence. Catherine understood that immediately. Gentlemen did not simply happen upon unchaperoned ladies at dawn in Hyde Park. He had sought her out. She should refuse. She should insist on propriety. Yes, you may. They walked in silence for a moment. Catherine's entire body felt electric with awareness of him beside her. Finally, desperate to fill the quiet, she said, "The weather has been lovely." "Indeed." A pause. "Do you walk here often?" "Every morning when I am in London. It is the only time I can think clearly." "What do you think about?" The question surprised her into honesty. "Books, mostly. I read whenever I can. My mother considers it a wasteful habit, but—" She trailed off, realizing she was revealing too much. "What are you reading?" "Currently." Catherine glanced at him. He was watching her with what appeared to be genuine interest. "Pride and Prejudice." "For the third time, I confess." His face transformed. "The Bennet sisters. You approve of Miss Austen's work, then?" "You have read it?" Catherine could not hide her astonishment. "I have, and I found myself rather sympathetic to Mr. Darcy, truth be told." His mouth quirked. A man who fails entirely at first impressions and must work to prove his true character. Catherine laughed before she could stop herself. It felt strange, that sound coming from her throat. Most readers prefer Mr. Bingley. They find Darcy too proud. Bingley is amiable but weak. He allows himself to be led away from his own heart. The Duke looked at her directly. Darcy, at least, fights for what he wants. Something in his tone made Catherine's breath catch. They had stopped walking without her noticing. They stood alone on the path, morning light filtering through the trees, and the Duke was looking at her as if she were the only person in the world. "Miss Ashford," he said quietly, "I must tell you something." "Yes?" "I noticed you last season, and the season before that." Catherine's world tilted. "You noticed me?" "I did. You were always in the corners, always watching. You never performed or simpered or played games." He took a step closer. "You were the only real person in rooms full of actors." Catherine shook her head, unable to process this. "You must be mistaken. I am not. No one notices me. No one has ever—" "I noticed," he said firmly. "I have wanted to speak with you for 2 years, Miss Ashford. The other night at the ball was the first time I found the courage." The world had gone very quiet. Catherine could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the morning sun on her face, could see the intensity in his eyes. This was impossible. This did not happen to women like her. "Why?" The word emerged as barely a whisper. "Because you are real," he said simply, "and I am tired of pretending." Voices carried from the path behind them. Other early morning walkers approaching. The Duke stepped back immediately, propriety reasserting itself. "I should let you continue your walk," he said, though his eyes said something else entirely. Catherine nodded, mute. "Miss Ashford," he bowed, "I hope we shall meet again soon." Then he was gone, striding back toward the path where a groom waited with his horse. Catherine stood frozen, watching him leave, her mind spinning. He had noticed her. For 2 years he had noticed her. She walked home in a daze, barely aware of her surroundings. When she entered the house, her mother was already awake, an ominous sign. "Where have you been?" "Walking, Mamma, as I do every morning." Lady Ashford's eyes narrowed. "The Duke of Pembroke has sent a note requesting permission to call this afternoon. Your father has granted it." Catherine's heart soared. Then her mother continued, "He is clearly confused by your forward behavior at the ball. We shall correct that misunderstanding today. You will make yourself scarce. Rosalind will receive him properly." The joy died instantly. "Mamma, I do not think—" You will do as you are told, Catherine. Her mother's voice was ice. You have already damaged your sister's prospects enough. 5 days after the ball, the Duke of Pembroke arrived at the Ashford residence for dinner. Catherine understood immediately why they had been invited. The dining table had been arranged, with Rosalind seated directly beside the Duke. Her sister looked ethereal in pale blue silk, her golden hair arranged in artful curls. She smiled and laughed at precisely the right moments, deployed practiced charm like a weapon. The Duke was polite, but distant. Catherine sat at the far end of the table, beside her father, and tried to make herself smaller. She answered when spoken to, ate mechanically, and avoided looking at Sebastian, because she had started thinking of him as Sebastian, even though she had no right to such familiarity. After dinner, they retired to the drawing room. Lady Ashford suggested music. "Catherine, do play for us," her mother said, in a tone that was not a request. Something pleasant. Catherine moved to the pianoforte, as she always did. She was well-trained, competent. Music was one of the few ladylike accomplishments she possessed. She chose a Beethoven sonata, something melancholy and complex, and let her fingers find the keys. She forgot about the room, forgot about Rosalind and her mother, and the performance happening around her. The music swelled, minor chords cascading into major, and Catherine felt each note in her chest. This was truth. This was the only honest language she knew. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then she heard footsteps approaching. "You feel every note." Sebastian stood beside the pianoforte, looking down at her. His voice was quiet, meant only for her ears. Catherine looked up at him, startled. It is the only place I can be entirely honest." Something shifted in his expression. Before he could respond, Rosalind's voice cut through the moment. "Your Grace, I would be happy to sing for you if you like. Catherine, you will accompany me, of course." "That will not be necessary," Lady Ashford said quickly, moving to the pianoforte. "Catherine, your sister wishes to perform. Do not monopolize the instrument." "On the contrary, Lady Ashford." Sebastian's voice carried an edge Catherine had not heard before. "I would very much like to hear Miss Catherine play again." The room went still. Catherine's mother flushed red. Rosalind's smile faltered. "I am sure you are simply being polite, Your Grace," Lady Ashford said tightly. "Rosalind has the superior voice, and I was not being polite," Sebastian said, and now his tone was cold. "I was being honest." Catherine stood quickly, desperate to ease the tension. "Truly, Mamma is right. Rosalind sings beautifully. I am happy to accompany her." She moved away from the instrument, avoiding Sebastian's eyes. Rosalind took her place, and Lady Ashford began sorting through sheet music, chattering about her youngest daughter's many talents. Catherine retreated to a chair in the corner. She did not look at Sebastian, but she felt his gaze on her, felt him watching the entire performance. Her mother's obvious machinations, Rosalind's practiced charm, Catherine's own quiet surrender. When he finally took his leave an hour later, he approached Lady Ashford formally. "Madam, I would like your permission to call upon Miss Catherine tomorrow afternoon." Lady Ashford's face went rigid. "Surely your Grace means Rosalind." "No, Lady Ashford." His voice was granite. "I mean Miss Catherine, specifically and intentionally. May I have your permission?" Catherine's heart hammered against her ribs. Her mother looked at her father desperately. Lord Ashford cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Of course, Your Grace. You are welcome in our home." Sebastian bowed. His eyes found Catherine's across the room. "Until tomorrow, then, Miss Catherine." After he left, the house erupted. The following afternoon, Sebastian arrived precisely at 3:00. Catherine waited in the drawing room, hands folded in her lap, heart racing. Rosalind sat beside her, unnecessarily. Lady Ashford occupied the sofa opposite, a dragon guarding treasure. Sebastian entered, bowed to Lady Ashford, nodded to Rosalind, and turned to Catherine. "Miss Catherine, you look well." "Thank you, Your Grace." He sat in the chair nearest hers. "I thought we might take a drive through the park this afternoon, if you would." "Catherine is not feeling well today," Lady Ashford interrupted smoothly. "Perhaps another time." Catherine's mouth opened. "Actually, Mama, Her mother's gaze could have cut glass. Catherine's words died in her throat. She looked at Sebastian helplessly, saw him register what was happening. His jaw tightened. "I see." He stood abruptly. "Then I shall not impose further. Lady Ashford, Miss Rosalind." He turned to Catherine. "Miss Catherine, I hope you feel better soon." There was something in his eyes, frustration, anger, determination. Then he was gone. The door had barely closed behind him when Lady Ashford rounded on Catherine. "Go to your room, now." Catherine fled. That evening, her mother came to her chamber. Catherine was sitting by the window, watching darkness fall over London, when the door opened without warning. "You selfish, thoughtless girl," Lady Ashford hissed. "Do you understand what you are doing?" Catherine turned to face her. "I am doing nothing, Mamma. He asked me to dance. He called on me. I did not seek his attention." "And you will stop receiving it immediately." Her mother's face was twisted with rage. "The Duke is confused. He is being polite to you because you embarrassed him at the ball. But it is Rosalind he should be courting. Rosalind, who could be a duchess. Perhaps he does not wish to court Rosalind." The slap came without warning, snapping Catherine's head to the side. She pressed a hand to her burning cheek, shocked into silence. "You will listen to me," her mother said, voice shaking. "You will refuse any further visits from the Duke. You will make yourself scarce when he calls. You will not ruin your sister's chances at happiness because you are too stupid to recognize pity when you see it." "Pity," Catherine whispered. "What else could it be?" Her mother's laugh was cruel. "You are 27 years old, Catherine, plain, dull, and useless except to chaperone your sister. The Duke of Pembroke does not want you. He is being kind, and your selfishness in accepting that kindness is destroying your sister's future." Lady Ashford swept from the room, leaving Catherine alone with her words echoing in the darkness. Perhaps her mother was right. Perhaps it was pity. Why else would someone like Sebastian Thorne pay attention to someone like her? The next morning, Catherine did not go to Hyde Park. She stayed in her room, pleading illness. Flowers arrived that afternoon, orchids and roses. Her mother intercepted them, and Catherine heard them being carried away. The following day, a note arrived. Her mother took it before Catherine even knew it existed. On the third day, Catherine sat by her window and watched the street below. Part of her hoped desperately to see him. Part of her feared it, because if he came again, she would have to face the truth, that her mother was right, that this had all been kindness misunderstood as interest. By the fourth day, the house felt like a prison. On the fifth morning, Lady Beatrice Wainwright arrived unannounced. Beatrice was Catherine's cousin on her father's side, a widow of 35, who lived independently in Bloomsbury. She swept into the drawing-room like a force of nature, kissed Catherine on both cheeks, and announced she was taking her to tea. Lady Ashford protested. Beatrice ignored her. An hour later, Catherine sat in Beatrice's elegantly chaotic parlour and tried not to cry. "Tell me everything," Beatrice demanded, pouring tea with more force than necessary. "And do not spare your mother's feelings. I have never liked her anyway." Catherine told her. About the ball, about Hyde Park, about the dinner and the aborted visit and her mother's words. When she finished, she felt hollow. Beatrice set down her teacup with a sharp click. "Your mother," she said carefully, has intercepted 3 separate messages from the Duke in the past 5 days. Catherine's head snapped up. What? I have it from my housekeeper, who has it from your housekeeper. The Duke has sent flowers twice and letters 3 times. Your mother has disposed of all of them. Beatrice's eyes blazed. Catherine, the man has been trying to reach you. He has not abandoned you. He has been blocked. Catherine could not breathe. 3 letters. He had written 3 letters. Why would Mama? Because she is determined to make Rosalind a duchess, and she will sacrifice you to do it. Beatrice leaned forward. Catherine, listen to me. The Duke of Pembroke is not showing you pity. I have known him for years. He avoids society, hates false performances. If he is pursuing you, it is because he genuinely wishes to. I am nothing, Catherine whispered. I am plain and old, and you are intelligent and genuine and kind. Beatrice gripped her hands. You are everything that vapid society is not, and perhaps that is exactly what he needs. Catherine looked at her cousin, wanting desperately to believe. What should I do? You should stop letting your mother dictate your life. Beatrice's voice softened. Come stay with me, Catherine, just for a while. Give yourself space to breathe, to think, to be more than your family's shadow. Catherine thought of her room at home, her mother's voice, the way she had learned to make herself invisible. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I will come. That afternoon, Catherine Ashford packed a small trunk, left a brief note for her father, and walked out of her family home for the first time in her life. She did not look back. The following morning, Sebastian Thorne arrived at Lady Beatrice Wainwright's townhouse in Bloomsbury. Catherine was in the library when the butler announced him. She looked up from her book, heart leaping into her throat, and then he was there, standing in the doorway, his face tense with concern. Miss Catherine. He crossed the room in 3 strides. Are you well? I was told you had left your family home. I feared. I am well, she said quickly, standing. Yes, I am well. They stared at each other. Catherine's hands were shaking. Your Grace, I must apologize. My mother told me you had lost interest. I did not know you had sent messages. I did not receive any of them. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. I sent 5. I received none. Silence stretched between them. Then Sebastian reached inside his coat and withdrew 3 folded letters. I kept copies. I wanted you to know, to understand that I did not simply disappear. Catherine took the letters with trembling fingers. She unfolded the first one. The handwriting was bold, confident. Miss Catherine, I hope you are recovered from your illness. I would very much like to call upon you again when you are well. I find I miss our conversations more than I anticipated. Pembroke. The second letter was longer, more uncertain. Miss Catherine, I hope my attentions have not been unwelcome. If I have misunderstood your feelings, please tell me directly. I have never been skilled at reading social cues, but I am skilled at honesty. I would appreciate yours in return. St. The third letter was dated 2 days prior. Catherine, I no longer know if you are receiving these. Your mother insists you do not wish to see me, but something in her manner makes me doubt this. If you truly wish me to cease my pursuit, I will respect that. But if there is any part of you that wishes otherwise, please send word. I will wait. Sebastian Catherine pressed the letters to her chest, eyes burning. I did not know. I thought, my mother said it was pity, that you were simply being kind to the unfortunate spinster sister. Pity. Sebastian's voice was raw. Is that what you think this is? What else could it be? Look at me. I am 27 years old, plain, invisible. Why would someone like you— Stop. He moved closer, close enough that Catherine had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Stop saying those things. Stop believing them. They are true. They are what your family has told you. His hands came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching. May I tell you what I see? Catherine nodded, not trusting her voice. I see a woman who plays Beethoven as if her soul depends on it, who walks alone at dawn because it is the only time she can breathe, who has survived years of being overlooked and has not become bitter. His voice dropped lower. I see someone real in a world of performance, someone who sees me as Sebastian, not as the Duke. Someone I have thought about every day for 2 years. 2 years. Catherine whispered. I was engaged once. Sebastian said abruptly, 5 years ago, to a woman who was considered the diamond of the season. Beautiful, accomplished, perfect in every way. His jaw tightened. She was also carrying on an affair with my best friend. They eloped together 3 weeks before our wedding. Very publicly, very humiliatingly. Catherine's breath caught. I am sorry. I was devastated, and then I was angry, and then I was done with all of it, the performances, the beauty, the perfect facades hiding rotten cores. He finally touched her face, fingers gentle on her cheek. And then I saw you, 2 seasons ago, standing in a corner at Lady Morrison's ball. You were not performing. You were simply watching, and the expression on your face was so genuinely weary that I felt it in my own chest. Tears spilled down Catherine's cheeks. Sebastian brushed them away with his thumbs. I asked about you, learned your name, attended events I knew you would be at just to watch you, to see if you were real or if I had imagined it. He smiled slightly. You were always real, Catherine, always honest, even in your silence, especially in your silence. Why did you not speak to me sooner? Fear, he said simply. Fear that you would not see me either, that you would see the title, the wealth, the expectations. But at Lady Hertford's ball, I looked at you and thought, if I do not try, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Catherine reached up, covering his hands with hers. I am not like Rosalind. I cannot sparkle or charm, or I do not want you to sparkle. His forehead touched hers. I want you to be exactly who you are. I want morning walks and honest conversations and the way you disappear into music. I want real. I want you. You barely know me. I have been studying you for 2 years, Catherine. I know you avoid lemon cakes at balls because you think they are too sweet. I know you prefer Wordsworth to Byron. I know you worry your bottom lip when you are nervous, just like you are doing right now. He smiled. I know enough, and I want to know everything else. Catherine was crying openly now, unable to stop. What if I disappoint you? What if I am not enough? You have never disappointed me. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. And you have always been enough. More than enough. My family will fight this. My mother will... I do not care about your mother. His voice turned fierce. I do not care about society's opinion, or your sister's disappointment, or any of it. I care about you. Only you. Catherine looked up at him through tears. What are you asking? Sebastian stepped back, taking both her hands in his. I am asking for permission to court you. Properly, honestly, I am asking for the chance to prove that I see you, Catherine Ashford, that I choose you, that I will keep choosing you. Something in Catherine's chest, something that had been locked tight for years, finally broke open. Yes, she whispered. Yes, please. Sebastian's face transformed. He raised her hands to his lips, kissing her knuckles. May I... He hesitated, uncertain for the first time. May I kiss you? Catherine's answer was to rise on her toes and close the distance between them. The kiss was soft, tentative, perfect. Sebastian's arms came around her, pulling her close, and Catherine felt herself melting into him. This was real? This was happening? Someone wanted her. Catherine, not the shadow or the spinster or the unfortunate eldest daughter. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me." Catherine laughed, the sound watery but genuine. "Should you not court me first? There are rules, Your Grace. I have been courting you for 2 years. You simply did not know it." He pulled back to look at her seriously. "I am not a patient man, Catherine, and I am done waiting. Marry me." "Yes," Catherine said, and this time there was no hesitation, no doubt. "Yes, I will marry you." Sebastian kissed her again, deeper this time, and Catherine thought she might actually be dreaming. But the warmth of his mouth was too real, the steady thunder of his heart beneath her palm too solid. When they finally separated, Catherine asked, "What happens now?" "Now," Sebastian said grimly, "I announce our engagement, publicly, immediately, before your mother can interfere further. There will be scandal. People will say terrible things. Let them." His voice was steel. "I am the Duke of Pembroke. I could announce my engagement to a milkmaid, and society would accept it eventually. They will certainly accept you. My mother will be furious." "Your mother," Sebastian said carefully, "will not be welcome in our home unless she apologizes to you, and I doubt she will." Catherine felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "You would do that, bar my own family. I would do anything to protect you." He cupped her face in his hands. "You are mine now, Catherine, and I take care of what is mine." 7 days later, the engagement was announced in the Times. Society erupted in scandal and speculation. Lady Ashford attempted to visit Beatrice's home 3 times and was refused entry each time. Rosalind sent a brief, cold note of congratulations. Lord Ashford sent nothing at all. Catherine found she did not care. She spent her days at Pembroke House, becoming familiar with the sprawling mansion that would soon be her home. Sebastian showed her every room, introduced her to the staff, asked her opinion on everything from wallpaper to dinner menus. On a quiet afternoon, a week after the announcement, Catherine found herself in Sebastian's library. It was a massive room, 3 stories tall, with windows overlooking the gardens, and more books than she had ever seen in one place. She was curled in a leather chair near the window, reading, when Sebastian entered. He stopped in the doorway, just watching her. "What are you reading?" Catherine looked up, smiling. "Shakespeare's sonnets. Your collection is extraordinary." He crossed to her, pulled a footstool close, and sat at her feet. It was such an unexpected gesture that Catherine laughed. "Your Grace, the floor cannot be comfortable." "Sebastian," he corrected, resting his head against her knee. "When we are alone, you call me Sebastian." Catherine set down her book and ran her fingers through his dark hair. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like a cat seeking warmth. They sat in silence for a long moment, sunlight streaming through the windows, the smell of old books and beeswax surrounding them. "I used to dream about being invisible," Catherine said quietly. "About not feeling anything anymore. It hurt less that way." Sebastian turned his head, pressing a kiss to her palm. "And now? Now I want to be seen." She looked down at him, at this impossible man who had chosen her. "But only by you." Sebastian rose to his knees, taking her face in his hands. "You are everything I see, Catherine. Everything I want to see." He kissed her then, soft and slow and full of promise. When they parted, Catherine rested her forehead against his. "I was so certain I would die alone," she whispered, "unwanted and forgotten." "Never forgotten." Sebastian's voice was fierce. "Not while I am breathing." Catherine pulled back to look at him properly. His eyes were dark, intense, filled with something that made her breath catch. Love. This was what love looked like. "I choose you," he said, each word deliberate. "I will choose you tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day for the rest of our lives. You are not invisible, Catherine. You never were, not to me." She kissed him again, pouring years of loneliness and longing into it, pouring hope and joy and the terrifying, wonderful feeling of being wanted, being cherished, being enough. When they finally drew apart, both breathless, Sebastian stood and pulled her to her feet. He wrapped his arms around her, and Catherine rested her cheek against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For seeing me, for choosing me." She closed her eyes. "For making me believe I was worth choosing." Sebastian's arms tightened around her. "You were always worth it. Always." They stood together in the library, two people who had been lonely for too long, who had found each other against all odds. The afternoon light turned golden, casting long shadows across the floor. Outside, London continued its endless rush. Inside, in this quiet room filled with books and possibility, Catherine Ashford finally came home. She had spent 27 years being invisible, being the forgotten sister, being not quite enough. But here, in Sebastian's arms, surrounded by the gentle quiet of his library, Catherine understood at last. She had never been invisible. She had simply been waiting for someone who could see past the performance, someone who wanted the truth of her, not the mask. She had been waiting for him, and now finally she was found.